Okay, so we're changing gears now to football on the SportsMax Zone. CONCACAF World Cup qualifying continued at the weekend. And let's have a quick look now at those results over Saturday and Sunday. BVI beaten 3-0 by Guatemala. Anguilla losing 4-0 to Suriname. Cayman Islands upsetting Antigua and Barbuda by 1-0. Trinidad and Tobago 7-1 winners over the Bahamas. Curacao 2-0 over Aruba. Nicaragua defeating Belize by 4-0. And then in the Sunday games, Dominica beaten 3-2 at home by Jamaica. El Salvador 3-1 over St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Costa Rica 3-0 over Grenada. Barbados beaten at home 3-1 by Haiti, who are currently the #2 ranked team in the Caribbean. Honduras 6-1 over Bermuda, who started well there but flopped in the second half. And Panama winning by 3-1 over Montserrat. An obvious standout result was the thriller which took place at Windsor Park, which saw Dominica almost claw back a 3-goal deficit against the Reggae Boys in a game that saw the Jamaicans win by 3-2. Dominica had a much tougher first qualifier, losing to Guatemala 6-0 in what was an extremely hostile environment. Here to give us some insight on both matchups is the head coach of the Dominica national team, Ellington Sabine. Ellington, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. Great to have you on the show here. A spirited fight back by the Dominicans at Windsor Park on Sunday afternoon. The fans got very excited. Your overall assessment on the team's performance against the more highly ranked Reggae Boys?
Well, I think the players did well. It was a spirited performance from the guys. We really took the fight to the Jamaicans because coming off that 6-0 loss to Guatemala, we really could not afford to be beaten badly again. So we went on into the game with a positive mindset and trying our best to remain compact and try not to get too many goals. Unfortunately, early on in the 20-something minute, we conceded a goal, then we conceded one a few minutes after that. One and a penalty in the second half. But then the guys rallied. From some coaching instructions, they rallied and we came back. We got 2 goals, and after that, it was just trying to get the draw or possibly even get the win. It wasn't meant to be. There was not much more time left in the game, so we had to settle for the 3-2 loss. But all in all, a spirited performance from the guys and a nice fight back.
Yeah, and Ellington, could you specifically talk about the coaching instructions you just referenced regarding or what triggered the fight back?
Well, really and truly, looking at Jamaica's previous game, like I discussed with the head coach of the Jamaica team after the match, they generally get fatigued somewhere around the 60th and the 70th minute. So at that point, we made two quick subs to impact the game positively in attack, and that worked. That's how we got back the 2 goals. So from doing the research on the Jamaica team, that was something the coaching staff pointed out, and we used it in our favor, and it worked, affording us the ability to get 2 comeback goals.
Yeah, I thought a very proud moment for Dominica, the way they threatened the Jamaicans late in the game. But before we continue on that, can you flash back quickly to a few days earlier when you had the Guatemala trip and beaten 6-0? A flurry of issues there impacting your team's performance, including some visa issues, we understand, that sort of troubled even getting to Guatemala with your full squad in the first place. And then when you got there, there were other issues that you had to contend with that your players weren't accustomed to. Could you talk to us about that quickly?
Well, yeah, logistically, it doesn't like me getting there. Like you said, the visa issues was a problem. That was something when we did our research that was recently introduced, and we really had no knowledge of, but it's really through no fault of ours. We arrived in Guatemala on the game day to some real hostile statements and hostile crowds. I mean, the Guatemalans fans are very passionate about their team, but I think some of the statements that were made were real derogatory, and I really don't think that was something that should have shown its ugly head in the game. The crowds and the statements made really impacted the team negatively because, as we know, football is really played with your feet, but if your mind is not settled and you're receiving those kind of statements for most of the guys for the first time, it obviously will impact your performance on the field. So that was what really plagued us apart from the travel issues that we had.
Yeah, I saw a lot of reports about that, you know, what you, the hostile environment that you were met with in Guatemala. You spoke about, you know, a lot of the game being mental. Yes, of course, physical, but it has a lot to do with your mind. So, Coach, you leading this team, Dominica, what would you have said to them after being thrashed to 6-0 against Guatemala and getting ready for the Jamaica match? Because, I mean, they were not playing Guatemala anymore in a hostile environment, but to be able to bounce back from such a devastating loss, and as well as the mental aspect of what they dealt with.
Well, after the game, we had the staff had a discussion with the guys. We expressed our dissatisfaction about the conditions.
Yeah.
And we just advised them to move on because, like you said, we're not going to play Guatemala. Again, we had to refocus, and we did not have a lot of time afforded to us before the next game because that game was played on Wednesday. We had to travel back to Dominica to prepare for the game on Sunday. And once again, superior opponents to us because, like you know, we are developing country when it comes to football. I mean, just to get them to focus and realize that, well, at least this game is going to be in front of their home fans, their family, their friends, in front of home crowd. So it will be a much more comfortable environment. So it's just a matter of them coming on the field and execute the footballing aspect of it and not having to focus too much on the negativity that was introduced to them in Guatemala.
Were you pleased with the turnout? Of course, the Dominican football-loving public, was it what you expected, or would you have loved to see a lot more people turn up?
It was a decent crowd, I must say. Probably the largest crowd we have seen in Dominica, in any sport in Dominica, for a long while. I really want to applaud the Dominican people for coming out and supporting the guys, even when we were 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 down, the crowd was still behind us and rallying us on because all they really asked for was 1 goal. We exceeded the expectations. We gave them 2. We could have probably gotten 3 or 4. But all in all, they were happy with the performance. And like I said, the spirited performance of the guys. They never really bowed their head. They kept the fight, kept giving the fight to the Jamaicans. And even at one point, the pressure shifted from the Dominican coach myself to the Jamaican coach because towards the beginning of the game when they were comfortably cruising 1 and 2 and 3-0 up, I was really the one, under pressure. But then when we started to get back the goals, you realize that, it's something is happening there. And started, being under pressure and pitching out instructions. So it was kind of nice to see a team and a coach of that caliber under pressure from a small country like Dominica.
Yeah, and Coach, I know it must have felt good, especially with those 2 goals coming at the time that it did. But what are some of the areas that, under you as leader, you'd like to see improved from your team moving forward, just to get the best out of the guys?
Well, there's 2 main areas: the speed of play and the speed of reaction. And both of them is mental. It comes back to the mental aspect of the game. We have to react faster on the ball because if you looked at the Guatemala and Jamaica game, you'd see that the speed of reaction and the speed that they play at is far superior to us. Too many times we have to find ourselves, tracking back and falling back. And having the Jamaicans and the Guatemalans most times reach to the ball before us. But once you get these 2 areas, as well as the minor setbacks we have defensively where we concede sometimes early in the game. Once we get these things going, we should be all right.
Yeah, Coach, just some clarification here, because earlier you mentioned that the team was affected by statements made when you were in Guatemala. Can you say what sort of statements are we talking about and by whom?
I really don't want to repeat those statements because they were really derogatory and they were by the Guatemalan fans.
And this happened on game day when you entered the stadium? This is something that happened when you were at the hotel?
During warm-up, during the games, when we put players on the side to warm up, the statements never really stopped.
And they were, and are we talking about large groups of fans, or?
Well, there were about 18 to 20,000 persons in the stadium, so you can imagine it's a large group of fans.
And these derogatory remarks were coming from all over, you are saying?
From all over, and the only reason, and probably if the assistant coach could not speak fluent Spanish, we would like just pass pass by, but because the assistant coach speaks fluent Spanish, that's what we were able to do. Well, he was the one that pointed out the statements that were being made to me and the rest of the coaching staff as well as the players. We tried our best to not have the players dwell on it, but like when you bring it out, you know, players always dwell on it.
And are these the types of statements that you suspect, if indeed you don't already know, that will be taken up by CONCACAF and by extension FIFA in terms of investigating and ultimately taking appropriate action?
Well, I hope it does, because I mean, these statements and these actions should not be tolerated in football. I mean, I really didn't see the need for those kind of statements. I'm sure if Dominica, the Dominica-Jamaica game played in Jamaica, would not be received by these hostile crowds and environments. I mean, the fans will come out to support. Just look at yesterday, the Jamaicans were in Dominica, our crowds were not hostile.
Yeah.
Welcome them even after the game. You know, persons use the opportunity to remove photos with guys like Reed and the other English Premier League and MLS stars. So it's not. I really don't think that fans need to bring it to a point where it has to reach those kind of levels. I mean, Guatemala is a far superior team to Dominica. Guatemala's been around the football in the arena for a while. Likewise, Jamaica. So it is expected that, you know, you should not fear teams like Dominica that still developing in their football. Yeah. So I'm really not sure why you would start and even choose to use those kind of things. Fire bombs were thrown at the bus was rocked while we were coming. Those things, I really don't think those things should, you know, be...
Yeah, and quickly, in 10 seconds, I know you say you don't want to say specifically, but can you at least tell us the nature of the statements? Were they of a racist nature or otherwise? Some were of a racist nature.
Some were of a racist nature. So, well, I am assuming that the Dominican FA will launch a formal complaint to the necessary authorities, because that really is not welcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just before you go, Coach, a quick word on Troy Jules. His free kick was the goal of the match, I thought. How good is he, and how impressed were you with that goal?
Well, I was and still continue to be impressed with Troy Jules from the very first time I saw him. Troy Jules primarily resided in Antigua, and that's where I saw him for the first time. I brought him on last year in the CONCACAF Nations League because I was really impressed with his talent and the talent that he possessed individually, and the way that he mixes up with the rest of the players in the team that he does not know. So he's an immense talent. He played, he was signed on to Mount Pleasant Football Academy last season.
Yes. Then
they loaned him out to Trondheim FC in Norway, and he still continues to impress. I think he has some 6 to 10 goals so far in the Norway League. So he's an immense talent. He's an asset to the team, just like the other foreign-based players and even the local players. Everybody puts in their shift, and you know, we try our best to bring positive results every time we step on the field, bring the fight to the opponent, no matter the size of the opponent.
Coach Ellington, Sabine, thank you very much for talking to us here on the SportsMax Zone. All the best for Dominica's furtherance in the World Cup qualifiers in Group E, and I hope we talk again soon.
Thank you.
Oh, great. We'll be back with more on the SportsMax Zone after this.